Well, here we are. It is, what's today? September 14th, 2022. And as I mentioned last week, we're going to be doing a video this week to cover some of the Sotheby's sales that are coming up during Asia Week in New York, starting on the 20th of this month. September 20th, and the catalogs, if you come over to the bitamount.com site and click on the little red box, it'll take you over to the catalog area where the two catalogs they've got out so far are posted, important Chinese works of art and Chinese bronzes. Rather interesting group of sales, and also there's a Korean sale in here that's very, very good. And so let's get into it. Let's just keep going through it. Here's the Sotheby's important Chinese works of art. On the cover is this really fine Qinlong famille rose on turquoise ground, porcelain done to emulate cloisonne, and then you have this ribbed Kangxi jar. It's a famous form. Many of you have seen it before. There are a few of these around. They always bring a lot of money. There's a lot of interest in them. The shape is so appealing, and we'll see how they do. But we're going to start with this sale, Power of Conquest, Forging of Empire. It's a bronze, early bronzes they appear to be from one collection or maybe two collections. It's hard to tell, but a number of the items in here were bought from Giselle Cos in New York, who's one of the great dealers in the world. They're right up there, of course, with other big Asian art dealers like Ashkenazi and how Lally was in that category, Jim Lally and so forth. And some nice examples. So we're going to hop to it. We're going to show you 3 or 4 of them. Here's the sale. It isn't a huge sale. There's only about 30 lots in the sale, and 3 of them are books, and the rest are bronzes of different types. And of particular interest to them it will be probably this will be right near the top of the heap is this Fang Hu Eastern Zhao to Warring States period example. Absolutely splendid piece. And big, 19 inches tall. They did make them this big, of course, and some are even maybe a little bit bigger. It has this original lid, which makes it very, very rare. What's interesting about these is the pattern that they developed to use on these emulate early lacquerwares. The lacquer patterns from earlier periods and so forth, and they've adapted them onto here and then inlaid the piece with malachite. And that's the green areas that you see. Absolutely beautiful. There's a very nice write-up on this below. I've said it many, many times. Always read the catalog note. They are a font of a concentration of information. You can get so much information out of these, and you can find similar examples. They always mention, Freer Gallery and other places where they have one, similar examples in the Mayan Tang collection and so forth. So you can go and do some homework on it and really sort of get into the meat of what these pieces are, why they were designed the way they were, and the evolution of them and how they were used and so forth. And that's a really good example. And then this is my favorite bronze. It's not the most expensive. It's pretty expensive. It's $150,000 to $250,000. But I love the impact visually that this has. I love the shape. It's of course a moon flask shape that was later adopted heavily during the Ming Dynasty in porcelain and the Qing Dynasty Qinlong moon flasks, of course. And this one has these beautiful panels that look very much like jades you see carved during that period. These little plaques running all over it with this beautiful patina. The surface on this is absolutely splendid. Very, very nice surface, undisturbed, beautiful condition. Not terribly big. These are about 13 inches or so, I think, 13 and 7, almost 14 inches tall. And as I said, estimated at 150 to 200,000, but beautiful quality. All right, and then on to this, the Fang Zun. Let's see, Western Zhao Dynasty, probably from the King Mu period, so they've really narrowed it down. One of the ways they did this is a fairly small bronze, by the way. It's about 8 inches tall, but it was fully inscribed, who it was given to, why, all that, and there's a very long write-up at the bottom of this. It goes on and on and on. I'm not going to read the whole thing because we'd be here for 2 hours, but lots of illustrations, lots of explanations of how these things were made, why they were made, who they were given to, and their history. And that is really what makes these so fascinating. And there are, of course, people out there who collect these bronzes and only collect the ones that have inscriptions on them, or prefer to collect the ones that have inscriptions on them, because having those inscriptions and then being able to get them broken down and figured out is the thing that really makes the history of these pieces so fascinating, because it gives you a real look into a specific time period and what they were meant for and how they were used, and opens a window into the history, which I think is what makes all of this the most fun, is the history of the pieces and when they and how they were used. Okay, so that's it for the bronzes. But go over and look at them all. They're really great, and they enlarge beautifully. You can get a good close look at the patinas and the surfaces, how they should look, because the copies they're making today, some of them are so good, because the Chinese have excelled at patinating and copying and giving bronzes old surfaces going on, hundreds of years. They were doing it in the Ming Dynasty when they were making some copies. They did it obviously long after that. They did them right up into the 1920s. But this is a good looking example, and it's authentic. All right, and then over here, important Chinese works of art. On this sale, this sale, I just went through really and again just pulled out the things I personally like. Okay, I think that's how everybody should collect. Never collect anything because of of value in particular. You don't want to overpay for things, but you don't buy things just because they're expensive or because they're cheap. Buy things that you love, all right? And that's really where the fun of collecting comes in. And you have this puce decorated U-form vase with the phoenixes all over it and flowers and branches, but spectacular decoration. Spectacular decoration all the way around. It is, let's see here, seal marking period of Daoguan, $30,000 to $50,000. But beautiful, rare type, and well done, which is always interesting. Being well done is important. Being well done is more important to me than condition. Even I like things that are of wonderful quality. I think that's my personal way of looking and evaluating things I like, and that follows through into something like this. And I think this is one of those interesting pieces that you can come across once in a while. It's a Southern Sung celadon, Longquan celadon relief worked dragon cup. These are, if you collect Southern Sung or Northern Sung wares or Sung de Yuan wares, you're interested in that period of time for collecting. Think about the last time you saw one of these, and you're going to be scratching your head for a while. And it's estimated very moderately at $2,000 to $3,000. I don't know. It could blow that away, but boy, what an interesting cup. It's only about 3 inches in diameter. These are fairly small. They have a very fine photograph of the bottom. Here it is, where you can really see what the bottom of a Southern Sung cup or Sung cup in general should look like, or porcelain or pottery. This is how they look. You can see where the glaze creeped back, shrank against the foot underneath, and you have this nice wear area that's obvious. And it's a great way to help you authenticate things, having those features. And here's a side view of it, so that the dragon appears on two sides of the cup, and so forth. $2,000 to $3,000 estimate. Not a huge, crazy amount of money. If you like it, take a shot at it. What the heck? All right. And then you have this, the Coromandel Kangxi period screen. Dated in the 12th year of Kangxi's reign, 1673. And what's fabulous about this is the condition of it. And Coromandel screens they don't bring the kind of money that you would think they would, given the quality. The decoration on here is stupendous. The colors are strong and still very, very, very vibrant. It hasn't faded. It's been well cared for. And it is fully inscribed on the back. It's got an extensive panel on the back explaining who gave it, who had it made, where it went, and who it was given to, and so forth. Because it was sort of a tradition back then that during the birth date celebrations of emperors, they would people would give screens to friends, influential people, governors, provincial governors, generals, things. They would give screens to commemorate the birthday, anniversaries, and so forth of the emperor. It was considered a sign of respect to do this, and this one was one of those screens. And interestingly, they call them Coromandel screens, not because they were made on the Coromandel coast, obviously, but that was the port from which they were shipped to the west. So they often name things based on where they were shipped from, like Swato, Canton porcelain, that sort of thing. They weren't made. No, they didn't make Canton porcelain in Canton. They shipped it from there, and these screens were first shipped out of the Coromandel coast after being brought there from China. All right, so that's how they got that name. At any rate, great screen, estimated 80 to 120,000. We'll see how it does. And then these Dewa figures of ladies, late Kangxi period, late 17th, early 18th century, 30 inches tall, 31 inches tall, 31 inches tall. These are huge. And these very elegant Dewa figures were unbelievably popular in Europe. Augustus the Strong collected them, had them in his collection, and you could stand them up because they were almost, they're 2.5, almost 3 feet tall, and they had quite a presence, and they were a very interesting departure from the typical Guanyin and seated immortal figures and so forth that you see that were done at the Dewa kilns. Here you have these very subtle, very elegantly robed women positioned just right with their right hand up, and the fabulous folds on the robes going all the way down. Just beautiful with these and applied bronze collars. Estimated at $30,000 to $50,000. It's a big price, but these are elegant and they're sort of iconic, especially among Western collectors going back to the early 1800s. Early 1700s, I should say, excuse me, and but in fine quality, and they look to be in great condition. And of course, always get a condition report, but they looked awfully good. And then to this, the brush pot. I love brush pots, and I love the wood, the patina the wood gets, and so forth. And this is Red Cliffs, the story on them, and they were done during the Jiajing period. This one was dated 1801. Beautiful quality, and these are sort of unusual because you notice the top, the cliffs go up and they have these sort of jagged tops to them, like the mountains climbing up and then just sort of disappearing, instead of being very round and flat like you see on traditional brush pots. And it's a very nice style. This one is inscribed, as you can see here, as an applied wood base and so forth. And I like this a great deal because I pulled this out. I have a very similar example in my own collection that I bought a number of years ago from a dealer friend over in England. This one's, I think, a little bit later, but of equally good quality. So I want to see how well this one does because they don't turn up very often. And I really, really like them. The estimate, like I said, on this one is $25,000 to $35,000, which is nothing to sneeze at. All right, and then this is one of my favorite bronzes in the sale. Ming Dynasty, probably 18th century, judging by the workmanship. And this is a big bronze. This is a wall cistern. It's 40 inches tall, so it's several feet, 3 feet tall, roughly, right? Isn't that the height of it? 40 inches. I'm going to double check that. 40 inches tall. So this is a 3 foot tall bronze. Over 3 foot 4 inches, but the quality of the casting is absolutely excellent all the way down, and this very fine low relief work of clouds, very detailed all the way up. The patina is beautiful. You see the serpent going in behind the clouds and coming back out again, and again that very chin-lung dragon, the way you see it done on blue and white and all that. And here you have the pearl swirling above him out of reach. Very, very nice. Estimated $8,000 to $12,000. If you're a bronze collector out there and you're looking for something that they haven't seen in a long time or never seen, this is probably one of them. And maybe consider trying to reach for it a little bit. It's a heck of a thing. And then over to this, the Tibetan-style monk's cap ewers, Duo Mo Hus, as they were called. These were used by Tibetan monks in that culture. They're religious articles. They were very popular in the Kangxi court, and they were originally not made out of porcelain. Those are the most common ones you see. Typically, you see them in the porcelain form. Originally, they were made out of wood, and monks used them to store yak milk and other liquids and so forth, and for ceremonial purposes. And this one is carved with bamboo, made out of bamboo, coconut wood carved, low relief, very finely detailed with pewter mounts and little fou lines on top. Absolutely great. absolutely great, and it's a pair. They are fairly tall. They're about 20 inches tall each, and estimated at $50,000 to $70,000. But great carving, and I think these are much more interesting than the porcelain examples, because they are, you can sense what they would have been like in an old Tibetan temple back in the day. I just absolutely love those. And I like carving. So, a lot of you know I like wood carvings. I like Chinese carving. I think it's underappreciated. And this is a great pair. All right, and then for those of you who like Kangxi pieces, here's something that's pretty unusual. A little bladder shape, a pear-shaped bottle vase with this Ming Dragon on it. It's sort of a goofy-looking dragon like you see on Wan Li pieces, but it was carried forward into the Kangxi period. Very simply decorated, nicely formed, nice shape. Has one little firing flaw over in here, which doesn't bother me at all. And then the wave pattern at the bottom, which you see on lots of porcelains during the 18th and 19th century. But the way they have this floating dragon on here, I think is just terrific. And estimated at $4,000 to $6,000. Here's the back of it, and you see that there's the pearl that the dragon is chasing after. It's on the back, so it's sort of fun. You can turn it around and see where he's trying to go. $4,000 to $6,000. Not a huge, crazy amount of money for something nice. It's about 7.5 inches tall. It's not an enormous vase. And then here we are back at that cloisonne, faux cloisonne sort of, a Famille Rose on turquoise ground vase that we talked about very briefly at the beginning. These are extremely rare. They're not something, I'm showing this just because the workmanship on it is so amazing. Because it's not something that, it really is something I'd be that crazy to own. There are I'd much rather own the monk's capures, even though they were worth much less than this. But this is something you have to appreciate for its quality and how the porcelain decorators so carefully did it that it does look like it looks like cloisonne on porcelain almost. It's very, very beautiful, very, very beautiful, and it is Marken period. Estimated at $250,000 to $350,000. We'll see how that does. But this is something I liked also a great deal. Is this Lungquan celadon Ming Dynasty sort of bud form jar with a character on it. Here's the bottom of it. It's about a foot tall. It's pretty good size. It was originally sold by Chait Gallery in New York. That's one of their old famous labels that you see. And you have this little firing gap around the bottom where the piece shrank during the process. And you have that nice whitish foot rim cutting into the iron, separating the iron oxide. That's just from wear and so forth, and how they smoothed it off after it was fired. Beautiful looking pot, beautiful. Estimated at $10,000 to $15,000, which isn't crazy, and it's an unusual form. So for that reason alone, it appeals to me a great deal. It's a very unusual shape. And it's funny, sometimes unusual shapes don't bring as much money as common shapes, because then people can compare them to other examples that are known and say, well, this one is a little better than that one, so it's worth more. So they need other examples as barometers from which to judge what to pay for something. And in this case, it's just $10,000 to $15,000 for a very rare form. And I think that's something worth considering. And then the Wutsai Marken period Wan Li inkstone with the reticulated body. The reticulation on this is really fine all the way around. The enamels are in quite good condition given its age, because it is a later 16th century object. Some wear on the corners, and that's about it. The red with the lappets around the base are nice, still nice and crisp and strong. The greens are good. The blues are good. This yellow in the well of the inks. It's like an inkstone, basically ink slab. Is that beautiful deep, rich, heavy egg yolk color. And it's a rare thing. That's all there. It's just a great thing. Great scholar's object, and sculpted. $80,000 to $120,000. That would be something I would love to have. And the Wutsai Dragon Zun form Marken period Wan Li vase. The mark is up here at the top. Very nicely done. This is a beautiful, beautiful example, and it's quite tall. These examples were made in a range of sizes, and they seem to go from anywhere from 15 or 16 inches all the way up into the mid-20s. This one is 25 inches tall, so it's a big one. $150,000 to $250,000. but quite an example. And then last is this. This will be interesting to see how it does. This was bought back in 2012, Qinlong period, jade, flask, dragon vase. It is not marked. And it was sold in 2012. It's got a heavy estimate on it, 800,000 to 1.2 million or something. The quality of the carving is excellent, but it's not marked, which is sort of mysterious as to why this wasn't marked. Because it's the kind of thing that would have been, I would always think, would have had a mark on it. They didn't mark everything, though. That's also part of it. But the quality of the work on this is exceptional. And if you're interested in learning about jades, come and examine this and blow it up. Because it really shows you what the small details, the fine work that was done on the 18th century examples, and then compare it to some of the later copies and fakes that are floating around today. And you'll find that the edges on the newer pieces aren't finished as much. These are fully finished, beautifully smoothed out. Look at the whisker coming down off the dragon. Beautiful curl in that stone. How hard that would have been to make, because jade is very difficult to carve. It takes forever to carve it. And the carefulness with which this was carved, to get all these little details, the whiskers and the tips of the clouds and all that, how they did it without breaking it is almost a miracle. Estimated at 800,000 to 1.2 million, but it was sold last time around in 2012 at Christie's. It came from a private collection in 1925. But it'll be interesting to see how this does. It'll be very interesting to see how this does, because the estimate to me seems a little heavy for a piece without a mark on it. But the quality may be enough to carry it, because I would think that this would have been normally estimated at 400 to 600,000 or something like that without a mark. And then heading over here to the Japanese or the Korean sale, but really the Korean ceramics and works of art, rather, is this. They have one of these iconic moon flasks. Joseon Dynasty, late 17th, early 18th century. You see these around. They all are, the fine ones are always of great interest. These were made originally in the kilns for the imperial family as ritual pieces. They're supposed to symbolize the moon, as the name implies, about 13 or 14 inches tall. This one has an $80,000 to a $250,000 estimate. If you examine it up close, you'll see that it's white, but it actually has a very soft blue tinge to it. There it is. You can see where when they glaze, they put the clear glaze over it. There's a tiny bit of cobalt in it, and it gives it this bluish tinge all the way down. Sort of the way Qingbai ware looks. And you can see it. That looks like the fingerprint of the guy that was dipping it right there, or something. There's something disturbed it and created that round thing. It might be a finger. But very nicely done, and they still make these today. That's the thing that's really interesting. There's a guy that I was reading about. He's a living potter, and his pieces in this form are so good they bring 100 to 150,000 even today, and they're brand new. All right, that's how popular that shape is. But he's a highly regarded potter, of course, and that's good for him. And then on to this Joseon period peony teapot. This is a pretty unusual thing. This is a very unusual thing. You don't often see Joseon teapots, but it has this the bamboo decorated cover handle and pickup handle for the pot, and then this very nice angular spout that swings out, tapers out over here, so you get a nice even pour out of it. The pattern is a common one. This pattern appears on lots of jars and so forth of the Joseon period, 18th and 19th century, and but this one has been applied to a teapot, and you don't see many teapots. And that is why it has an estimate of $40,000 to $60,000 for a 19th century example. All right, and the same goes for this very $25,000 to $30,000 estimate for this baluster vase. It's fairly good size, 13 1/4 inches, but the decoration on it's very unusual with the birds. This form most often found, very often, 9 out of 10 of these are done with dragons. The dragon pattern, and that was traditionally how everybody thinks of them, with the Chinese dragon going around the outside, which was something the Korean potters adopted. And here you have them sort of showing perched birds, and rather folky looking birds, on this craggy pine tree, I suspect. and there's some other flowers and clouds behind them, and it looks like they attempted some underglaze red here that sort of burned to brown, or they used some weird combination of the cobalt that turned it brown. I'm not sure which. And then this fine crackle finish that's slightly discolored, which is something you do see on these, and it is considered normal, and it doesn't hurt the value at all. $25,000 to $30,000 estimate. All right, and then this is getting near the end. This is a really unusual piece. If you collect and you're interested in sungwares, you'll recognize this form and shape with these serrated leaves, or with these carved leaves running around the outside, because you see these unsung pieces. This was a popular pattern, and the Korean potters adopted it. And this was done probably in the 14th century, and they copied it from 12th, 13th century Chinese examples, most likely. They offer no other information on it other than that it's obviously Korean. Korean celadons are rare, keep that in mind. And you'll see in the description down here, they've got nothing. They don't have any provenance on this thing. I have no doubt that it's authentic. But all they said is has a Japanese wood box, because as I've said before in other videos, the Japanese collected the best of the best from Korea and China, going back hundreds of years. Some of the great collections, the Fujita collection, for example, one of the best collections of Chinese art in the world, was bought by a Japanese gentleman in the late 19th and just a little bit into the early 20th century. All right, and now you have this turning up, and with a $35,000 to $45,000 estimate, pretty stiff estimate, but I don't know. You go find another, see how it does. All right, may not do well. I don't know. It's one of those wild. You don't. There's no comparisons, I don't think, to look up from auctions, because I don't remember seeing anything like that. So we'll see. And then you have this iron brown painted dragon jar, Joseon, 17th century. Tips a little bit. These are sort of funky, these jars. They're loosely based. The shape is a little bit like a moon flask, but then not a moon flask form. But the general shape starts out that way, and then they do a different treatment on the body. They add this line around it, and then they add this rim, which is not what you see on a moon flask. The moon flasks, moon jars go straight up a little bit, but the decoration on this is terrific. It looks like a fantasy carving of a dragon in underglaze, an iron brown rather. I like it a lot. I like this. It's very cool. And how big is this thing? It's not enormous. 12 inches tall. Good looking thing. And we'll see how that does, okay? And that's sort of an overview, but go and look yourself. But I do the reading on the notes that Sotheby's provides, because they do such a good job with it, and it's worth doing. It's educational, and even if you can't buy the piece, you can have a very strong sense of what it is and why it is, and how it came to be, and how it fits into the material culture of the time, and that is where all the fun is. All right. So that's that, and we're going to try and do a preview also of the Doyle sale, which is coming up. They've got a nice sale coming up. They got some really interesting things that are more on the affordable side, but very good quality. They've got some good jades and some nice porcelain and interesting things. So we're going to take a look at that too. And they've got a one vase that is probably going to do very, very well, and we'll talk about that. All right. So thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Subscribe here, visit Bitamount, use the forum over there, and we're back every week with at least one video a week, and often we do two, and when auctions are running on Sundays we get 3 in. So, and then we'll do price results afterwards, and we'll sort of go back and do an autopsy of what the world's really like, and see what's going on. All right, everybody have a great week, and thanks for watching. All right, bye-bye.